Right, let's focus on the title race now. Manchester City went top of the Premier League last night for the first time in over 200 days. They beat Burnley 1-0 and lead the way with 5 games remaining, but only on goals scored. Let's speak now to former City defender Nedum Onuoha. Nedum, thanks for joining us on Sky Sports News. 209 days we worked out Arsenal were top of the league. City weren't top since the opening week in August. After last night, how significant a moment is that, psychologically maybe as well?
I do think it is a big moment psychologically from a City perspective, but the fact is the ball's now in Arsenal's court. I think Arsenal play this weekend in the league, whereas City are playing in the FA Cup, so Arsenal have a chance again to go back to the top. And I believe they actually have 2 games in the league before City have their next fixture. So before you know it, this feeling of City being top, well, City could then be in a position where they're 6 points behind Arsenal if Arsenal do what they have to do. So I think it is significant from a City perspective to really be in a title race, because I think for most people, a month or so ago, it almost felt inevitable that Arsenal would be taking the title. I think City dropped points away at West Ham, where Mavropanos scores with West Ham's only shot of the game, and it felt like the title was probably done at that stage. But for the way that football is, these things can start to happen, and the belief is there. Now we have a genuine race on, whereas, not too long ago, I thought it was just going to be a procession for Arsenal.
Nedum, just stay there, because I want you to listen in on what Erling Haaland said yesterday, because he seemed a bit bemused when he was asked about the lack of goals against Burnley. It was obviously just a 1-0 victory. Let's hear from him now, and we'll come back to you. This is Erling Haaland from last night.
Yeah, we had a lot of chances, but I'm happy we win, and that's the most important thing. Anything else, don't think, just try to win. It's all about winning, no matter how. We try to play our football and just try to win. That's what you have to have in your mindset, and now focus on Saturday.
And it also shows, I think, a team against Burnley when probably many were expecting more goals to be scored here tonight. How difficult a title challenge it is for you.
Don't think about other goals, think about winning, as I said now 3 times.
And you keep that mood going as well in the dressing room, because I imagine it will be a bouncy dressing room despite the 1-0 scoreline here.
1-0 is amazing, I'm super happy. I don't know why you keep on asking me that. I'm super happy, we win and we get 3 points. And as they sing, we are top of the league, so be happy.
Right, so Nedum, he doesn't understand why Juliet Farrington kept asking him the question about the goals. But we're now 5 games from the end of the season. They are level on goal difference. Many people looked at this game last night as maybe a way that City could stretch that goal difference, give them a little bit of comfort maybe. The 28 shots they had yesterday. Does it feel now on reflection that it maybe was a bit of a missed opportunity in spite of what Erling Haaland just said there?
I think at this stage of the season, this is where you see a real split between the playing side of the game and the watching side of the game. Because for people on our side of things, we're watching that game expecting City to win. So if we expect them to win, we expect them to try and run the tally up, because we're thinking, it could come down to goal difference and so on. But for those guys that were out there on the field, like Burnley overall made a good go of it. Obviously, they have been relegated now because of that result. But in the last minute of the game, Burnley are finishing with a corner kick with a chance to sort of tie and make it 1-1. Like, that type of stuff does matter. I think the primary objective for City, for Arsenal, before anything else, is securing a victory. If it happens to come with a ton of goals, then that's brilliant. And, Burnley haven't been fantastic overall this season, which is obviously one of the reasons why they're down. But I think Haaland understands that before the game, it was a chance for them to go top, and top is where they went. If we get bogged down in the idea of goal difference and that's all they're going to be thinking about, then very quickly you can almost lose your focus. Because I think for many of us who remember through the league history, like, remember that time, for example, where Liverpool were 3-0 up away to Crystal Palace and they were rushing to get the ball out the net because they're thinking goal difference, goal difference, goal difference, and then the game finishes with a draw. Like, winning the games is ultimately going to be the most important thing that gives you the chance itself. If it comes down to goal difference and it's in your favour, then fantastic. But you can't just rest on your laurels and expect that, a team's going to be winning convincingly every single week. Because if it was that easy, then both of these teams would be much further ahead points-wise than we see at this moment in time. And again, for context, the difficulty in terms of being in this position, both teams could win their remaining games and finish on 85 points. I think as far as the history of the Premier League goes, it shows that points are being dropped by those 2 top sides. And who knows whether or not it'll even be 85 to win it. So I think for Haaland, he made the point, emphasised the point. They're on the same amount of games as Arsenal now. They've got the same amount of points, but they are top. And if the season wants to finish now, then surely that's mission complete.
Yeah, just picking up on Haaland, he's now scored 5 goals in his last 4 games. There was a period at the start of this calendar year where there are a few doubts being thrown his way. He's basically just shown, never doubt me, hasn't he?
Yeah, do you know, he has done that. He certainly has done that. And he'd know himself that it's been an imperfect season. I think it's been imperfect for a season for City and lots of other teams and players as well. But at the time where he wasn't scoring as many goals as, say, we'd expect him to, that's when the likes of Semenyo and others were really sort of finding their form as well. And I think if we go back to what feels like an everlasting season, at the start of the year, the talk was, will City score any goals if Haaland doesn't score himself? Well, there was that spell where he wasn't scoring, but they still found a way to be in this title charge now. But I think for me, if they are to win the Premier League title, I think his goal is going to be a big part of it going forward. I think his sort of sense of where to position himself and his finishing when he's at his best is as good as anyone, not just in the league, but probably in world football. So yes, he's had his dip, but even when he had his dip, he was still top scorer in the Premier League. And I think if he finds his confidence and he gets those chances created for him like we saw yesterday, then, you know, I'm backing him to continue scoring.
Yeah, you mentioned winning the Premier League. They've already won the Carabao Cup. They're in the semi-finals this weekend, of course, against Southampton in the FA Cup. They've already done a domestic treble. They've already done the treble under Pep Guardiola. If they were to achieve a domestic treble again with this team, given everything that's happened this season, where do you think that would rank in Pep Guardiola's achievements here at Manchester City?
I think that's a fantastic question. This is provided that they do it, because we've seen in the last two attempts for City in terms of the FA Cup, losing the final to Crystal Palace and losing to Manchester United as well. So nothing is ever going to be guaranteed from that standpoint. But in reality, every trophy that they win is a very, very hard fought and, you know, well-earned one. I think the fact that they're in the semi-finals of the FA Cup again for maybe like the 7th or 8th year in a row is really impressive. But every title really matters. This one here against Arsenal, for them to be so far away, say just a couple of months ago, if they were to go on and win it, you know, they deserve a ton of credit, especially with the newer faces that are involved. And you can see from a City perspective, this season is almost like the beginning of a transition as such, because now you're looking at the likes of Semenyo, you know, looking at Kuzanovs, Gahey's and others who are going to be potentially taking the mantle forward when you lose the likes of Bernardo Silva, John Stones, recent times, Gundogan's, De Bruyne's, Kyle Walker's and so on. So I think it would be really significant for almost putting the club in the right sort of position to, say, be successful going forward. But again, it's so difficult to win even one of these trophies. So if they were to get 3, I guarantee Guardiola will probably treasure it as much as anything else he's achieved in his career.
Yeah, just reflecting back on that big game on Sunday when they beat Arsenal at the Etihad, a certain Wayne Rooney was critical, shall we say, of the celebrations at the full-time whistle, saying that City were almost celebrating like they'd already won the title. What did you make of those comments and what did you make of the celebrations?
To be honest, I think most people would say that that game was one which had been marked off so long in this season. And as the sort of gap was getting smaller and smaller, you felt how significant it was. And when the game was done, like the fans from a City perspective were rightly celebrating and fans from an Arsenal perspective were hugely disappointed. So I think in some ways it's probably unfair to try and police how people then celebrate any particular moment. And for, say, if he's being critical of the celebrations, like we're talking about a side that are potentially going to win their 7th league title in 9 years. So in terms of like finding the balance of how to celebrate, I think they've done pretty well at that across all those years. But they know how significant a game that was, especially to do it in front of their home fans. And I think from a City perspective, the manager always says to the players after the game, go and applaud the fans. They do that on a week-to-week basis. And obviously, like, Donnarumma is a very, very passionate person. Him going into the crowd, yes, that does feel extraordinary. But then in the same breath, that's just who he is as a person. I don't think the celebrations, in my opinion, were over the top. And it's a very easy thing to say when we see people do that. But, you know, you've got one of the most successful managers in Premier League history in charge of that group of players. I think if ever there was going to be a group that wouldn't overdo something, whether it's on the field or off it, I think it's going to be that group under the stewardship of Pep Guardiola.
An incredible record, isn't it, in April. It always seems to happen with City and Pep Guardiola when it comes to the business end of the season. I think you mentioned it earlier on in this interview, but do you feel now that they're top and because of their performances historically during the end of the season, that the psychological edge is now with City?
That's a good question. I think they've got players within the squad who've, you know, tasted success before, know how difficult it is and know how like fine the margins can be. But in terms of the psychological edge, I think you can almost balance it out in some ways because you know that Arsenal will be able to find some form again. And the fact that the two teams don't have to play against each other again, well, you know, they're having their own separate battles. I think the interesting thing this year is the fact that Arsenal were in the semi-finals of the Champions League, and many people, you know, fancied them to make it to the final. So 2 games against Atletico, whilst mixed in with the league games, offers us a chance to see like what they're really made of. But then from a City standpoint as well, if we're going off just general like league position, then their games, like on paper, are essentially tougher playing against the likes of Everton, Bournemouth, Crystal Palace as well, to name those 3. So, and obviously Aston Villa as well. So I think psychologically, as Guardiola's been there, he's done that, he can remain calm. And I think Arteta gives off the same sort of energy. But for those players, they've not really experienced what it's like to get across the line just yet. So I wouldn't necessarily expect them to understand it. But I guarantee that, you know, they'll be ready for it because this dip in form that they have now, this isn't who they are. And I think who they are might manifest itself between now and the end of the season.
Right, Ned, we're going to put you on the spot now. Talk us through your predictions for this run-in. How do you see it all playing out?
So I'll be honest, because you caught me at this exact time on this Thursday, I feel as if City are going to get it done. But I feel like it's going to go to the last game of the season. But I'll be completely honest with you. If you were to ask me tomorrow based on how I felt, I might have said the opposite. But then again, you know, this is very much the sort of predictions of somebody that supports Manchester City and believes that they can do it. So I will hold my hands up and hope nobody takes too much offence to that. But I think Arsenal are more than capable of winning the games that they have left and then leaves those 2 tough games for both sides. I think for City, being at home to Aston Villa, being at home might be a big deal. And I think for Arsenal, playing against Crystal Palace side that do not give up a ton of goals. This Crystal Palace side who are turning into form, you know, who also might be in the final of the Conference League as well. I think the energy could be really, really high there and they want to finish the season on a high. So I see it going with City at this moment in time, but maybe that's just because that's how I want it. And in reality, maybe it'd be much tougher than I've predicted.
All right, Gooners, this is where it gets real. So yeah, Manchester City are top now after 200 plus days. And of course, the media is running with it like the title race is shifting. But let's be honest for a second. The ball is still in Arsenal's hands. That's the part they don't emphasise enough. We've got games in hand, we've got control, and if we win those, we go right back on top. Simple as that. So all this psychological blow talk, it only matters if we let it matter. And then you hear Erling Haaland basically saying, who cares about goals, just win. And you know what? He's right. At this stage of the season, it's not about smashing teams 4-0, it's about getting over the line. 1-0, ugly, scrappy, doesn't matter. 3 points is everything. But here's the difference. City have been here a million times. They've done it under Pep Guardiola over and over again. We haven't. And that is where the real pressure is. Not the table, not goal difference, not what City are doing. It's whether this group is ready to finally get over the line. Because let's not forget, a few weeks ago everyone was saying the title race was done, that Arsenal were just going to cruise it. Now suddenly it's a proper race again. That tells you everything about football, it changes fast. And honestly, I don't buy this idea that City have some unstoppable psychological edge now. Yeah, they've got experience. Yeah, they know how to close seasons. But this Arsenal team, they've shown all year they can bounce back. And here's the key part. If we rediscover our level, not even perfection, just our level, we win this league. That's it. No need to overcomplicate it. So now it comes down to one thing, Gooners. Do you believe this team has learned from the past? Or are we about to relive it? Leave your opinion in the comments below. That's it for today, Gooners. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and hit subscribe for Arsenal news every single day. And drop a comment letting me know, where are you watching from? London? Kenya? USA? Let's see how global this Arsenal family is. Come on, you Gunners.